Hello.
Hello,
I think it,
Patience. Oh, you look so
we made it.
lovely.
But
You,
you know, I think my computer. Can you hear me? Because
yes.
I had to use my computer. Okay,
Okay, I
great.
can hear you. You want to come say hello? Hello.
Yes, I see. Look, you've grown so much.
Can you?
You're really. How old are you now?
I'm 13. Time.
Like last time I saw you, you were basically a baby.
Yeah. Well, baby was a little thing. He wasn't even a
Yeah,
year, I think. No, he was a
yeah,
year. He was walking around.
yeah. He was. He
Yeah.
was. Yeah. Oh, it's so good to see you.
Oh, it's lovely to see you too. Patience is a very, very special person in my life. We go back a long way. And she calls me Small Ma. Now I know Patience from when she was a student at high school, right? You were still in high school. And now she's a mum of two. And a very happy mum of two. So anyway, but I'll leave the rest of the introductions to you, Patience. You can tell us about yourself.
So, hi. I am Patience Garton-Kristiansen, and I am 33 years old. I'm South African, but at the moment I'm living in Norway. And how did I get to Norway? Long story short, when I was studying in Cape Town, I was doing my BA in Sociology and Social Anthropology. A friend of mine was also studying there at the same time, and her brother was visiting her. And yeah, a few years later, him and I are married, and we're in Norway right now. And as you said, we have two amazing children, Benjamin and Selena. And Benjamin is 5, and Selena is 3 years old. So yes, we met, yeah, when I was in high school or senior primary, and I am so glad that you just one of my people in life.
What you are
Yeah.
saying about the children going back. So you'll have had lockdown for how long?
Yeah, it's been a month and a half. So yeah, so no, it's actually yeah, month and a half. Month and a half. So basically, now the first sort of easy transitioning has been taking kids back to school and kindergarten, and we still like are on lockdown. That's the only thing that has changed. So the rules that were there a month and a half ago are still being implemented. So basically, still, like gyms are closed, no big gatherings are permitted. Another thing that has changed though is before we were not allowed to go to cabins because a lot of people have cabins in the mountains. And the reason for that is that, for example, a whole lot of people from the cities will migrate to their cabins. But then these cabins are within small districts whose health system cannot carry more than what the community has available, you know? That was the reason before, and I think because we've managed to contain the situation, they've eased up on that. Otherwise, you're still not allowed to have big gatherings, and at the shop you keep that 2 meter distance, and you keep, if you have a group or at kindergarten of friends you're playing with, you stick to that group. So basically with the kids, this is the drill. The kindergarten opened on the 20th or 21st, which was last week. And then last week. And then basically what happens is we have to dress the kids to be outside because most of the day is spent outside. And the kindergarten divides the kids into small groups. So for example, Benjamin has about 5 kids in his group, and they stick with that one group for the whole week, and they're allocated one adult, and that teacher sticks to that same group as well. And usually the kindergarten provides meals for them, and now they don't do that. We're supposed to, sorry, it's the road building. We're supposed to make sandwiches for them. And they prefer that sandwiches are wrapped in paper. We don't give lunch boxes because then they can throw the paper away.
Oh.
And that's 2 meals a day. So basically, before we leave the house, the kids and I have to wash our hands. And when we deliver them at the school, we're not allowed on the premises per se. We have to sort of all stand in a line and keep that 1 meter, 2 meter distance from the next parent.
Mm-hmm.
And the teacher receives them from the other side of the gate. And then they put like antibac on their hands. They wash their hands, and then they're gone for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then within these groups, there's a sort of a time schedule for when each group gets picked up. So for example, a group will get dropped off at 8, half past, and then another one 8:30, and another one at 9.
Okay.
And yeah, and I guess that's to limit the traffic as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Okay.
And then they will be fetched at 3, 3:30, maybe 4, 4:30, the other group. And then when you when you come to receive your kid, same as earlier on, you wash your hands, and the kid also gets sprayed with antibac, and then they go home.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how the kindergarten is doing it. And then the schools opened this week. And, you know, I think the government has really been trying to encourage everybody to let kids go back to school. But I do know quite a few of my, what they would call here, like immigrant friends, have been a bit worried, like I was as well. Yeah, malls have been open. And so basically even what we call the wine monopoly, it's like a bottle store, like
Okay.
a shop with wine and beer. Everything is still open in terms of shops and most industries. However, the government has said that they prefer everybody works from home. So most, you know, for example, Bernard, my husband, he actually has been within sort of like project management, and they, you know, they are in the construction industry. So they have had to make sure, for example, if they're renovating a house, that the workers don't end up in the same space. So one, for example, will have to be in the kitchen, and then another one will have to be somewhere else. And if you are showing symptoms, then you're also not allowed to obviously come to work. But restaurants, so if you're working within the restaurant industry, because, you know, for restaurants, most people are not going to restaurants because you have to be able to create that, you know, 2 meter space between everybody, which means that restaurants are not making that much money unless they're able to provide takeaways. But then a lot of people have lost their jobs through all this as well, you know. And for me, it's quite, you know, a lot of people know Norway as this, you know, peace-loving country, and we're championing equalities, but we also have our own sort of prejudices to deal with. And, you know, and for me, this period has also exposed, you know, which people actually are working in which industries, which people are losing their jobs, who has what kind of jobs, you know, who is able to actually have office work, you know, and who, within which sort of fields are you able to have office work, because an immigrant most probably is not going to have a job which allows them to, you know, work in the office, and which kind of job. So for me, that it sort of started, I don't know if they're thinking the same thing as I am, but for me, that is what kind of started, coming out.
Yes.
So that's the situation. And like now, for example, some physiotherapists are able to work if they are able to keep through to the health guidelines within their space. So I think we're slowly easing back into work life, so long as work life doesn't consist of a lot of people and rules are kept, but still if you're able to do office work, then it is preferred. And also, you know, the transport system, it's preferred that first it was healthcare workers. It was, more healthcare workers who were told, okay, they're free to come and go. But then the rest of us, it was preferred we stay home. But in terms of the kids, it was very strange for them because their natural instinct is to have sort of this impulse which drives them to go play with each other or go speak to a random adult, you know. And even though we sat down with them and we spoke to them about COVID-19 and the rules and why it was, you know, like that, and they had an understanding of it, we as the parents had to be on guard. Like, okay, where's Benjamin? Where's Selena? What are they doing? You guys need to remember, we can't be that close. We can't play with so-and-so, you know? And so I think they also miss that social interaction and having someone else besides mom and dad. So that was very, very strange, I think, for all of us. And my kids are extroverts, you know?
Probably the unrelated, I guess, is there anything that you think you'll do differently in the future because of this? Are there practices, I guess, that will continue?
I think for me, what I realized is that the modern world really doesn't accommodate parents, or is not structured for parents that well. And so having kids at home, it was like a bit odd. It was as if we were all given this holiday, but it was forced. You know, you were given this holiday, but it was forced. And on top of that, you couldn't go anywhere because all the places you like were essentially closed. You know, so I think what has changed is also realizing how much our children need time with us to connect, you know, just to have that connection with our children. And living in Norway, it's so different from South Africa. You know, South Africans, we're very, very loud. You know, I get excited very quickly and easily about things, and and the Norwegians are way more, the Norwegians are way more calm and reserved. So I think that when, you know, this whole situation happened with lockdown, that general silence that was there before was still there. And so it wasn't that huge a shift socially. And the social distancing thing, I think we living in Norway maybe adapted to it pretty quickly, because in general, I think if you go to Oslo, for example, you will notice that there's this unwritten rule that you don't sit next to each other if it's not necessary. You generally sort of respect the next person's space, and people are not as chatty. So I think, I wish that would change, that we've been through this period, you know, can we have more interaction with each other? You know, you know, and for people around you. So I wish that would change a bit. So I am hoping to connect a little bit more with my friends and maybe start up conversations more with strangers, even though it might be a bit frowned upon. And be less scared of taking up space if you're, you know, supposed to not be sitting next to someone, and it becomes the norm as opposed to it becoming uncomfortable, because we've had a time of not having people around us, you know. So if we would gravitate more towards each other, I think that would be beautiful, wouldn't it? You know?
What do you think are the main lessons we can take from the situation, maybe at a personal level and broader?
I think, you know, on a broader level, we need to start asking ourselves as a society how this has affected different people, you know, and not just focus on our own problems and be as consumed with sort of self-serving, but thinking of others in relation to, for example, in South Africa, the spatial order of things, the education system, because I know right now you guys are having that discussion going on, and maybe rethink technology as well, because that's how we managed to keep sane. We kept in touch with people around us by not just WhatsApping, but also video calling. Like we doing a lot of Zoom meetings were held, and sort of making maybe technology, how we can make either technology more accessible or cheaper. And also I think for me it was quite telling, you know, the kinds of jobs that allowed people to stay at home and work from home, create home offices, and who lost their jobs, who managed to keep their jobs, and who will manage to recover from this, because a lot of people might not recover from this because it's had quite an economic impact on all of it. So I really I hope we start asking ourselves those hard or uncomfortable questions, I think, as a people. And so I think on an individual level, I hope to just be kinder to myself, you know. I think before there was this rush, accomplish this, do this, you're failing at this, you're not doing well enough on this, you know. And just having that realization, you've moved to a totally different country, which is very different from your own. You're trying to rediscover yourself as a parent, as a wife, and just sort of trying to plant roots, and you're doing the best you can. And so I think having this moment with all the things that we were trying to do and achieve before, and when everything stopped, made me realize actually how much I was doing. So I'm realizing now, like, you need to go easy, be gentle, be kinder to yourself.
Wow, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful, Patience.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the biggish question, the last question: in what way do you think the world has changed irreversibly, or will have changed irreversibly because of this?
I think people are going to be hit, as I said, pretty hard economically, you know, because a lot of people have lost jobs. You know, I think that the biggest challenge will be paying bills, paying your rent. For example, how are you going to manage to sustain yourself as a family? And a lot of people might be able to come out the other side from this, but then in a country, for example, like ours, we are trying our best under the current situation. But, you know, when you're already poor and you are already trying to feed so many people in one household, and you haven't been necessarily working for a long time, your job also might not be there when you try to return to it, to normal life. So I think the poor will be hit pretty hard by this. And even those who are quote unquote okay, how are you going to manage to pay your mortgage and sort of maintain quote unquote the lifestyle that you might have? And for those who are unemployed and are hoping to go back into the work market, job market, you might have to be against more people you had to go against before, you know. So I think it's going to be quite hard in that regard. But I think on a social, everyday life experience, I think we might be a bit more skeptical to being close to strangers and having contact with people we don't know. And there's this human need to also attach things to people whenever there's sort of a catastrophe or some sort of phenomenon. For example, in an area when there's suddenly violence, a certain category of people start being blamed, you know? Yeah, so now there's this pandemic going on. Suddenly we'll start attaching it to a certain group, and it creates this mistrust and this skepticism. So I think that might happen. I'm hoping that it might not happen, but you know, I've seen certain people jumping a few steps away from others when we're walking in the streets now, and that happens. That would be sad. So I think those are my two biggest worries: the financial aspect of it and the social aspect of it. How we're going to relate to each other moving forward, and the blame game is really it's not going to help anybody either. You know. I'm a bit solution oriented. I said I'm a bit solution oriented. So just blaming each other is not going to get us anywhere either.
Absolutely. Is there anything else? Is there anything else you'd like to share or say? Oh, it's so nice to get an outside perspective. You know?
Yeah, this is great. I'm loving, even though I don't get to finish all the videos, I'm loving the different sort of points of view and the conversations that are happening, and to just see amazing South African women, it's just like I'm being fed. So that's been really lovely, I think. Yeah, it's just like, where did you get all these? And everybody's so different.
Yes. Even the age gap, right? Starting from a 20-year-old, a very thinking young person, to over 50-year-olds, you know?
So, I mean, even if you look back one day, it's going to be like these archives you have, you know? And, you know, it's like one day when someone's like, what did it look like? What did people go through?
Thanks, Patience.
No worries.
Thank you so much, and love to your babies.
Thank you. Luke, you have to meet them soon because you've grown.
Yeah.
And they've grown.
Yeah.
Jeez, they are like little weeds, man. But they are, you can just see how happy those kids are and carefree, eh?
Yeah, we try.
It's beautiful to watch them growing up. You know,
I don't want them to grow up this quickly, but they really are growing.
I know that feeling. Oh, stop.
Yeah, it's like pause. Or they should come with a pause button, even if it's for a year.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
We'll speak to you guys sooner or later.
Okay, Patience.
Thank you for being in the conversation and for your comments here and there.
Yeah.
You've always been a smart one, haven't you?
Thanks, Patience. It's so lovely to chat with you, hey?
You too. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.